Bola Tinubu's reform to reboot Nigeria, the gains in just 24 months. They called it chaos. He called it a necessary reset. In a nation battered by decades of dysfunction, economic stagnation, and elite capture, Bola Ahmed Tinubu didn't inherit a government, he inherited a ticking time bomb. Now, 2 years later, love him or hate him, the evidence is on the table. Perhaps, just perhaps, Tinubu's reforms are starting to reboot Nigeria. This is the story of sacrifice, backlash, vision, and momentum. This is not propaganda. This is the reality as it is.
The storm he inherited. In May 2023, Nigeria was on the brink. Foreign reserves were depleting. Naira was in free fall. Fuel subsidy burned 400 billion Naira monthly. Over 133 million people lived in multidimensional poverty. Debt servicing consumed over 90% of revenue. Tinubu stepped in, not as a messiah, but as a political veteran ready for the fight of his life. And his first words were not soft. Fuel subsidy is gone.
It was one of the most radical first-day decisions in Nigerian history. Fuel subsidy removed. The Naira floated. The CBN shaken up. Exchange rates unified. In one stroke, the market distortions of decades were attacked. Yes, the pain was immediate. Fuel prices tripled, inflation surged, transport costs spiked. But beneath the shockwaves, a new system was forming.
Revenue, reinvestment, and fiscal discipline. Within 24 months, Tinubu's reforms began to shift the fiscal tide. The federal government saved over 4 trillion Naira from subsidy removal. Monthly FAAC allocations to states rose from 700 billion Naira to 1.2 trillion Naira. Customs, FIRS, and NNPC revenues increased due to policy harmonization. Fuel smuggling dropped by over 60% according to NNPC data. The money saved didn't vanish, it moved into infrastructure, wage reviews, food security programs, and state budgets.
Infrastructure gains and renewed momentum. In 2 years, strategic projects received funding and life. The Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway began, unlocking coastal trade and tourism. The Port Harcourt-Maiduguri Rail Project moved forward. 500 rural road projects were initiated for food transport. The 5G deployment strategy was rolled out to power Nigeria's digital economy. The Lekki Deep Seaport expansion attracted private sector activity. For the first time in years, capital expenditure was real, not just paperwork. Agricultural reform and food security. With food inflation threatening survival, the Tinubu administration launched the Presidential Compressed Food Security Plan. Distributed over 88,000 metric tons of grains from national reserves. Expanded fertilizer access via National Agricultural Growth Scheme. Created cluster farming zones in 10 northern states. Secured over $1 billion in agro-investment commitments from India, Brazil, and China. While hunger hasn't vanished, food availability and production began a turnaround.
Financial and monetary system reset. Tinubu took on the central bank itself, a powerful institution clouded in controversy. Within months, Emefiele was removed. A forensic audit exposed over $2.4 billion in undisclosed FX deals. FX backlog repayments began, restoring investor trust. Exchange rates moved from 460 Naira to a market-determined level, attracting diaspora dollars. It wasn't smooth, but it was honest. The aim? Restore credibility, regain confidence, reset the game.
People-centered social interventions. To cushion the impact, the Tinubu administration expanded social investment. Over 15 million Nigerians received 25,000 Naira monthly under cash transfer schemes. Negotiations for a new minimum wage began. World Bank-backed palliative programs provided food, grants, and education support. Trader money and Jeep loans were revived for micro businesses. The goal wasn't perfection, it was people-first pragmatism.
Foreign investment and global positioning. Bola Tinubu became Chief Marketing-in-Chief of Nigeria. Within 24 months, over $30 billion in FDI commitments were secured. Deals for data centers, fintech parks, lithium processing, and electric vehicle assembly were signed. Visa bans from the UAE were lifted after diplomatic reset. African free trade zone negotiations were accelerated. The world started to see Nigeria not as a risk, but a bet worth considering again.
The pulse of the people. But let's not forget, reform comes with pain. Inflation is still high. Millions still struggle daily. Trust is fragile, and patience is wearing thin. Yet, even in frustration, some admit, we see some movement, something they happen, but it's still hard.
Criticism, controversy, and tough questions. Critics argue the pain is too much too fast. There's still cronyism in key appointments. The FX unification worsened inflation. The poor are bearing the brunt of elite policies. And they're right to ask, is the end worth this cost? Are the gains reaching the grassroots? Because reform means nothing if the people don't feel it.
Perhaps we are rebooting. Reform is not magic. It is slow, bitter, unpredictable, and often thankless. But perhaps the books are cleaner. The world is watching us differently. States are earning more. And Nigeria, after decades of patchwork, is finally rebooting. Not because one man is perfect, but because one man made the hard choice to start a reset.
This is AfroRizeTV. This is Nigeria Unfiltered. Subscribe, watch, think, because perhaps we are finally on the path to something better.